Alright folks, welcome back to the channel. Today we're going to talk a little bit about my Eagle Vision scope cam setup that I've got, and that's what I use to record all of my downrange shooting through the scope. When I first started, I was using an iPhone camera mount, and to shoot that way you have to shoot by looking through the viewfinder on the iPhone, which was causing some problems that we'll get into later. So I opted to go with the version that fits GoPro 5, 6, and 7, I believe. I use a GoPro 7. Now, in order to use the 7, you have to change the lens out. You can opt to get the lens sent with the camera mount when you buy it. And it's pretty simple to change out. You just pop off the cover, unscrew the old one, and screw the new one in. The tricky part is that you have to focus it, which there's some videos on the internet on how to do that, but basically it's a lot of trial and error until you get it focused right. But once you get it focused, you're good to go. There's also a lot of adjustability with this mount. You can add or take away those spacers between the camera and the mount itself there to change the distance from the camera to the scope. And all the parts are super high quality machined aluminum. My only complaint about that is that it would be very easy to strip the threads out of any of these set screws if you over torque them a little bit. So if you do end up getting one of these, just be real careful how tight you tighten the set screws. Here you can see I've got it mounted on my Ruger 1022. Now, as I was talking about earlier, the benefit to this kind of scope mount is that the camera is actually off to the side. It uses a mirror in the mount that sits at a 45-degree angle, and your image is deflected to the camera, and it's also allowed to pass through to your eye. So you can use the scope as normal. You don't have to mess with looking at a camera screen or anything while shooting. You just turn on the recording function on your camera and shoot away, and then when you're done, the camera saw everything that you did. That collar towards the front of the mount is how you physically mount it to the scope. As you tighten that down, there's a piece on the inside that contracts and tightens up on the scope, and you do have to crank on it a little bit to get it tight, but as I said, be careful when you're cranking on it because everything is fine machined aluminum threads and you'd hate to strip those out. Now I want to show you guys some of the testing that I've done. After upgrading to this Eagle Vision cam, I've realized that I started to get a lot better groups than when I was shooting with my iPhone cam. So I shot some comparison groups, and let's take a look at those. Alright, so here I'm just going through my first 25 round magazine. Just kind of a warm-up round, get the barrel warm. The range was packed this day because it was a super nice day for February. So if you hear all the noise in the background and the talking, that's what it is. You can see the focus looks pretty good here, but the background's a little bit washed out. And I think that's just because of how the range is set up. You get a lot of glare. I actually went here in the morning one time and it was impossible to shoot. The glare was so bad you could not look down your scope. So I'll show a clip here in a minute of the iPhone in the same range, and you can see that same glare going on. And here's that first group. Not bad for a little warm-up group. About 19 or 20 in a decent group, and then 6 flyers. Overall 1.62 inch group. Not bad, like I said. Again, I wasn't following my fundamentals super strict here. We will start shooting for precision here in a second to get a good comparison between the Eagle Vision cam and the iPhone cam. Here's a little side-by-side comparison of what the two different recordings look like. On the left you've got the Eagle Vision cam, and on the right you've got the old iPhone cam. Now these were on two different ranges. The Eagle Vision was shot on the 100-yard range with the target at 50, and the iPhone was shot on the 50-yard range, so that's why the background's a lot clearer on the iPhone. The biggest difference that I can tell, the most beneficial to me, is that the reticle is so much clearer on the Eagle Vision cam versus the iPhone. The targets look similar. They're different, but similar in quality, but the difference in the reticle is really what I'm looking for here. Alright, so now we're getting to the real meat and potatoes of the comparison here. This is me shooting a 10-shot group through the Eagle Vision cam with Aguila SEHP Super Extra Hollow Points, because I have a previously recorded 10-shot group of the same exact ammo through the iPhone cam. So here we'll be able to tell if shooting through the scope with the cam versus shooting through the screen when using the iPhone really makes a difference in accuracy or not. So there you have it. I shot a 1-inch group on the nose through the Eagle Vision scope cams, and as I pull it up here, the iPhone cam, I shot a 1.3 and some change. So we saw a 327,000th improvement by shooting through the Eagle Vision cam versus shooting through the iPhone. Now I know 0.3 inches doesn't sound like a lot at 50 yards, but as you go further out, that will propagate, and by the time you get to 100 yards, that's over half an inch of variation that you'd be adding. I also shot some Federal Automatch while I was out there, so let's get to that. So here I started shooting some Automatch rounds. In this clip I'm shooting my 10 round group already, but I did take a warm-up magazine just to season the barrel with it. You can see the center target in the top right quadrant is where I took my warm-up magazine with this, and you can see it's got a pretty good group up there. It all stayed pretty much in the same area. The other advantage to using this Eagle Vision cam that I didn't really talk about earlier is that by using a GoPro instead of your iPhone, especially on the GoPro 7, it comes with a stabilization feature where it will automatically stabilize your footage as it's being recorded, and the iPhone just didn't do that. So you had a lot of movement in your recording, and you just don't get that with the GoPro. It's a lot more stable. And that also allows you sometimes to see bullet trails or even the bullet itself, especially if you're using the slow-mo feature on the GoPro. That stabilization allows you to get a chance to glimpse that, whereas with the iPhone there's no way you could see any of that. And there you have it. I shot a 0.7. I did have 2 flyers, which I'm really not proud of, but even with the flyers it was still only a 1.16 inch group. Now let's take a look at the old group. So here you can see the old group. I shot a 0.977. So we had 0.277 inches of improvement if you don't count the flyers. Now the other thing that you may not be taking into consideration, if I stick these groups right beside each other, the Automatch group from the iPhone recording pretty much looks like all flyers. It's hard to tell where your group is and where your flyers might be landing, whereas when you're shooting with the Eagle Vision, you can very clearly see which group is your group and where your flyers are landing. So even though I'm not seeing like a earth-shattering improvement in your group size, you're definitely getting a more consistent group and you're able to identify flyers a lot better. Also, the fact that I got a consistent average 0.3 improvement between the Federal Automatch and the Aguila SEHPs makes me think that this is more of an actual improvement and not just some random factor. So that's pretty much all I had for you guys. I definitely recommend getting the Eagle Vision cam if this is something you'd be interested in. It's worth the price. It's definitely more expensive than going with like just a straight up camera mount that goes on the end of your scope, but it's worth it. So last but not least, I want to end off with what I showed at the beginning of the video. Is I shot a 3-shot group. That was the best 3-shot group I've ever shot at 50 yards, and so I just decided to end it off there because I didn't think I was going to get any better. So again, thanks for watching. Let's take one more look, and I'll see you in the next one.